You will stand in the rain until you remember that charity does not make you family." Lady Euphemia's words crossed the churchyard with the clean sting of a whip. A few guests laughed. Not loudly, not freely. It was the thin, obedient laughter of people who wished to remain welcome at Blackmere House. Marianne Vale stood beside the iron gates, with no cloak over her mourning dress. Rain had darkened the wool from shoulder to hem. It gathered in her lashes and slipped beneath her collar. Behind her, the church doors remained open, spilling candlelight across the wet stones. The rector could see her. The servants could see her. The tenants who had come to honour her father could see her. Sir Edmund Vale's coffin had not yet reached the family vault. Yet his widow had already ordered his daughter out of the family carriage. Euphemia sat beneath its raised hood, wrapped in black velvet and sable. Her son by her first marriage, Percival Grant, lounged opposite her with one gloved hand resting on a silver-topped cane. At the carriage step stood Arthur, Marianne's younger half-brother and the new master of Blackmere. "Mother," Arthur said quietly, "there is room." There was room for 3 more people. Everyone could see it. Euphemia lifted her chin. "Your sister chose to challenge me before the rector and the household. She refused to surrender the keys. She questioned why your father's study was locked. She may walk home and consider whether pride is worth the discomfort." "I asked why the study was sealed before father's burial," Marianne said. Lady Corisande Bell hid a smile behind her hand. 2 young officers beneath the porch exchanged amused glances. Euphemia's eyes hardened. "You hear her. Even now she cannot submit to simple decency." Marianne looked at Arthur. When they were children, he had climbed onto a frozen pond to retrieve a ribbon she had dropped. He had once sworn that no one would send her from Blackmere while he lived. Now he lowered his gaze to the gravel. Percival signalled to the coachman. The carriage door began to close. Then the dark green coach waiting behind them moved forward. Its horses were taller than the Blackmere pair. Its crest, silver against polished wood, belonged to the Duke of Valonne-Crest. The Duke had attended the funeral out of respect for Sir Edmund. He was known as a reserved man, severe in judgment and sparing with favour. Invitations to Valonne-Crest were discussed for months. A word from him could restore a family's standing. His silence could ruin it. His carriage stopped beside Marianne. The footman jumped down, but before the servant reached the handle, the door opened from within. The Duke of Valonne-Crest stepped into the rain. The laughter died. He was 42, too established to be reckless, and too young to be dismissed as sentimental. Rain struck the shoulders of his dark coat. He did not open an umbrella. He looked first at Marianne, then at Euphemia. A daughter who has buried her father should not be made to beg for shelter. Euphemia's face changed. "Your Grace, this is a private family matter. A private cruelty performed before 50 witnesses is no longer private." No one moved. Even the horses seemed to quiet. The Duke opened his own carriage door and offered Marianne his hand. Miss Vale. She had met him only twice. Once at a harvest dinner, where her father had spoken with him about failing tenant roofs. Once in the Blackmere Library, where the Duke had seen a column of figures copied in Marianne's hand and asked who had corrected the steward's arithmetic. Her father had answered with pride, "My daughter did." Now that same daughter stood soaked at the roadside, while her own family watched. Marianne placed her hand in the Duke's. His glove was warm. As he helped her into the carriage, Euphemia's expression held more than anger. For one heartbeat, Marianne saw fear. It was not fear of gossip. It was fear that the Duke's kindness had interrupted something carefully arranged. And there was a secret locked inside Blackmere House, powerful enough to make Lady Euphemia fear not Marianne's tears, but her return. Before we go back to the beginning, tell us where you are listening from today. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you do not miss the next chapter. Your support helps us continue bringing stories of courage, injustice, and restored dignity to life. Now let us return to the winter morning when Marianne first understood that her father's house was no longer safe. 3 weeks before the funeral, Blackmere had smelled of beeswax, damp wool, and medicine. Sir Edmund had been confined to his room since the first frost. His illness had not arrived with violence. It had entered by degrees, a weakness in his fingers, a heaviness after supper. Moments of confusion that drifted through his mind like fog across the eastern fields. Marianne remained beside him. She was 31, unmarried, and considered by Euphemia to be an expensive remnant of Sir Edmund's first marriage. Marianne's mother had died when she was 9. Euphemia had arrived 2 years later with an ancient family name, costly gowns, and debts no one mentioned in company. At first, she had treated Marianne with polished patience. That changed when Arthur was born. A son gave Euphemia security. Marianne became unnecessary. She was educated enough to keep accounts, answer correspondence, and hear tenants' petitions, but not free enough to earn money openly without embarrassing the family. Her father relied upon her. Society pretended he did not. For years, she had managed the work others praised him for completing. She knew which cottages needed slate before winter. She knew which tenant had lost 2 cows to fever. She knew how much barley the Western farms had produced, and why the amounts in the steward's book did not match the rents collected. Sir Edmund had trusted her with the household keys. Not all of them. The key to his private writing desk remained on a chain beneath his waistcoat, even during his illness. On the morning Marianne first became afraid, she entered his chamber carrying weak tea, bread, and quince preserve. Euphemia stood near the window with Dr. Harcourt, a physician from London whose cuffs were too white for a man travelling country roads. Sir Edmund slept. A cup stood beside his bed. Grey residue clung to its bottom. The doctor closed his leather case. He requires quiet. Marianne set down the tray. What has he been given? A sleeping draught. He was awake an hour ago. Then he has improved since yesterday. The answer made no sense. Marianne looked at Euphemia. Her stepmother wore pearl earrings with her morning gown. She always dressed carefully when she wished to appear calm. Your father became agitated during the night, Euphemia said. He accused Percival of entering the study. Did Percival enter it? Euphemia smiled. That is precisely the sort of question that encourages a sick man's delusions. Percival had lived at Blackmere for 6 months, claiming that country air would improve his health. In truth, he spent his days at cards, his evenings drinking, and his mornings asking the steward when the winter rents were due. Sir Edmund had never trusted him. Marianne crossed to the bed. Father, his eyelids moved. For a moment, nothing happened. Then his hand emerged from beneath the coverlet and seized her wrist. The strength startled her. The blue book, he whispered. What blue book? Not the copy. His breath caught. Euphemia stepped closer. Edmund, you must rest. Sir Edmund's eyes opened. They were clouded by illness, but the fear within them was clear. Marianne bent lower. Where is it? He turned his gaze towards the wall. Beyond the portrait of St. Matthew lay his locked study. Under St. Matthew, he breathed. Bell knows. Euphemia's hand closed around Marianne's shoulder. Enough. Sir Edmund tried to speak again. Only a rough sound left him. Dr. Harcourt picked up the cup. Marianne saw Euphemia glance at him. It lasted no more than a heartbeat. The physician placed the cup inside his case. Why are you taking that? Marianne asked. To prevent the servants from confusing medicines. It is a teacup. Then it will be of no use to anyone. He fastened the case and left. Euphemia followed him to the doorway, then turned. Your father is not himself. You will not repeat his confused words downstairs. Marianne did not answer. Euphemia softened her voice. You have always wanted to be useful. Be useful now. Do not make his final days more difficult. It was not concern, but command. For the first time in her life, Marianne understood that obedience and goodness were not always the same thing. That afternoon, rain struck the library windows. The room was warmer than the rest of Blackmere. Coal glowed beneath the carved mantel. Shelves held sermons, travel journals, estate maps, and books no one had opened since Marianne's grandfather died. The door to Sir Edmund's study stood beyond the painting of St. Matthew. It was locked. Marianne tried each key on the household ring. None fitted. She crouched beside the threshold. Fresh scratches marked the brass around the lock. Mud stained the carpet. Someone had entered recently from the garden passage and crossed the library without removing wet shoes. Percival never removed his shoes. Voices approached. Marianne stepped behind the long curtain beside the study door. The library opened. Euphemia entered with Percival. Their reflections moved across the dark window glass. "You should have taken it yesterday," Euphemia said. "The desk was locked. Then force it. And have the old man notice?" "He notices less each day." Percival approached the fire. "There is no certainty the deed is there. There is every certainty." Edmund told the solicitor he intended to protect Marianne. "How much?" "Enough to damage us." "That is not an answer." "The Weston Farms, the London house, a trust of £12,000, perhaps more." Percival gave a low whistle. Marianne pressed one hand against the curtain. £12,000. It was not wealth measured against a duke's estate, but it was freedom, a house, an income, the power to live without asking permission. Euphemia moved nearer the hearth. "Arthur inherits Blackmere if the settlement remains untouched. But if Edmund placed the Weston Farms beyond the estate and gave Marianne control of the London property, our position becomes fragile." "Arthur's position," Percival said. "Ours. Your brother has no sense for money. He will sign what I place before him, provided he believes it protects the family name." "And Marianne?" Silence followed. The fire settled with a soft collapse of coal. "She will be made to appear unstable," Euphemia said. Percival laughed once. "Like her aunt?" Marianne stopped breathing. "Never mention that woman here." But it worked. It required patience. Letters were withheld. Invitations ceased. The household repeated what it was taught. By the time she protested, every protest proved the accusation. And the physician? Paid. The room seemed to tilt. Marianne's fingers turned numb. Her father had once spoken of his younger sister Lydia, who had died in a private house after years of illness. He had never named the illness. Euphemia always called it a sorrow best forgotten. Percival lowered his voice. "What if Marianne finds the papers first? Then she will not keep them long." The library door opened. Elsie, one of the kitchen maids, entered with a coal scuttle. She stopped when she saw Euphemia. "Beg pardon, my lady." "Put it down and go." Elsie set the scuttle near the hearth. As she turned, her gaze passed over the curtain. She saw Marianne's shoe. Her face did not change. A minute later, Euphemia and Percival left. Marianne remained hidden until the clock struck 4. When she stepped out, the library felt colder than the rain outside. She went directly below stairs. The kitchen was crowded with steam and work. Copper pans shone against the wall. A joint of mutton rested near the range. Cook argued with a boy about onions while 2 maids folded linen beside the dresser. Elsie stood at the scullery sink. Marianne waited until the girl carried a basket into the narrow pantry passage. "You saw me." Elsie almost dropped the basket. "Miss, I would never." "You said nothing." The girl looked towards the kitchen. "My place is not to see things. Sometimes seeing is the only useful thing a person can do." Elsie swallowed. "They have been burning letters." "Who?" "Mrs. Pike takes them from the morning tray. Letters addressed to you. She carries them to her ladyship's sitting room." "How long?" "Since before Sir Edmund took ill." The corridor narrowed around Marianne. "Were any saved?" "One." "Where is it?" "I thought it might contain money." Despite everything, Marianne almost smiled. "Did it?" "No, miss. Only writing. A great deal of it." "Who sent it?" "Mr. Bell." Marianne remembered her father's whisper. Bell knows. Nathaniel Bell had served as Sir Edmund's solicitor for more than 20 years. He had not visited Blackmere since autumn. Euphemia claimed he was ill. "I hid the letter behind the flower bins," Elsie said. "Then Mrs. Pike began searching the servants' rooms, so I moved it." "To where?" "The old greenhouse. Bring it to me tonight." "I cannot. Mr. Percival has ordered the garden doors locked after dusk." "Then I will go before dusk." Elsie caught Marianne's sleeve. "There is something else." Footsteps passed at the far end of the passage. Both women fell silent. When the sound faded, Elsie whispered, "Mr. Bell came here last Tuesday." "That is impossible. He came by the east lane in a hired trap. I saw him from the laundry yard. He argued with Mr. Percival near the old greenhouse." "What happened?" "Mr. Percival struck him." Marianne's shock was not loud. It was deeper than sound. "Where is Mr. Bell now?" Elsie shook her head. "I do not know." Marianne returned upstairs and spent the next hour beside her father. She read aloud from the Gospel of St. Matthew because he had requested it every evening since her childhood, under St. Matthew. At first, she had thought he meant beneath the painting. Now, as she turned the thin pages, she wondered whether he meant the book itself. Sir Edmund slept uneasily. Near 6, Arthur entered. He was 24, handsome in the gentle way of men who had rarely been required to defend anything. He stood beside the fire and watched Marianne close the Bible. "Mother says you are upsetting father with questions. Did she also tell you Percival entered his study?" Arthur sighed. "Marianne, did she tell you Mr. Bell came to Blackmere?" His expression shifted. "Who told you that?" "So he did come." Arthur moved towards the door. "You should not involve the servants in family affairs." "The servants are already involved. They carry the trays, burn the letters, wash the cups, hear the doors. That is enough." "No. It has been enough for too long." Arthur turned back. "Mother believes father intends to divide the estate. Father may do as he wishes with what is his. Blackmere must remain whole. At the cost of what?" Arthur looked at her but did not answer. Not because he had no answer, because he knew it and lacked the courage to speak it. Marianne rose. "Did you know they intended to call me unstable?" His face lost color. "No. The denial came too quickly. You knew something. Mother said you had become strained, that you were too involved in father's affairs, that after his death you might not accept the changes required." Changes. The word lay between them like a closed gate. Arthur reached for her hand. "Whatever happens, you will be cared for." "By whom?" "By us." "In what house?" He was silent. "On what income?" Still silence. "With what freedom?" His hand fell. Marianne saw the truth in him. He loved her. He also loved comfort, inheritance, approval, and the shelter of not knowing too much. When forced to choose, he would not choose cruelty with his own voice. He would merely stand nearby while someone else spoke it. A bell rang from the lower hall. Euphemia called his name. Arthur left without looking back. For the first time in her life, Marianne did not call him back. At 6:30, while the family dressed for dinner, she took a cloak from the servants' stair and slipped through the laundry yard. Rain covered Blackmere in silver darkness. The old greenhouse stood beyond the kitchen garden. Half its panes were broken. Ivy had entered through the roof. In summer, Sir Edmund had once grown peaches there for Marianne's birthday. The door resisted before opening. Inside, the air smelled of wet earth and rotting wood. Marianne found the flour sack Elsie had described beneath an overturned bench. The letter was wrapped in oilcloth. Her name appeared on the front, Miss Marianne Vale. The seal had been broken. She unfolded it. "My dear Miss Vale, your father has instructed me to prepare documents concerning your late mother's marriage settlement and certain funds held separately from the Blackmere estate. I must speak with you privately. Do not sign any paper presented by Lady Euphemia, Mr. Percival Grant, or even your brother, until I have explained the consequences." Rain struck the roof harder. Marianne read on. The letter referred to an original ledger bound in blue leather. It contained records of transfers made from her mother's trust. Mr. Bell believed some withdrawals had been concealed within estate expenses. He feared Sir Edmund's failing health would be used to approve further changes. At the bottom, the final sentence had been underlined. "If I fail to reach you, seek the ledger where your father kept the names of the dead." Marianne read it twice. Names of the dead. The family Bible. Births and deaths were recorded between its first pages. A sound came from outside, a boot against gravel. Marianne folded the letter and placed it inside her bodice. The greenhouse door opened. Percival stood beneath the frame with Rain behind him. He smiled. "You should not wander alone, dear sister. I am not your sister." "No, that is rather the problem." He entered and closed the door. Marianne stepped back. Percival's gaze dropped to the oilcloth on the bench. "What have you found?" "Nothing." He came closer. Not anger, but calculation sharpened his face. "Give it to me." Marianne looked towards the broken pane to her left. Too narrow. The rear door had collapsed years ago. Percival extended his hand. "Do not make this unpleasant." It was already unpleasant. It had begun long before the churchyard, before the rain, before the laughter. Marianne understood that now. She drew the letter from her bodice. Percival's smile returned. Then she held it over the rusted brazier, where one coal still glowed beneath the ash. His expression changed. "You would not." Marianne lowered the edge towards the ember. "Take one more step, and neither of us will read it again." For the first time in her life, she saw a man who believed himself powerful hesitate before her. Then a shadow passed across the broken glass behind him. Someone was approaching the greenhouse through the rain. Percival heard it too. He turned towards the door. Marianne closed her hand around the letter. She did not yet know whether the approaching figure had come to protect the truth or destroy the last proof that it existed. The figure reached the greenhouse door and struck it with a walking stick. "Open this door, Mr. Grant." Marianne recognized the voice. "Mr. Bell." Percival's face changed. "Give me the letter," he said. Marianne held the paper above the coal glowing in the brazier. "Open the door. You do not understand what you have found. I understand that you are afraid of it." The stick struck the wood again. Percival lifted the latch. Nathaniel Bell stood outside beneath a dark traveling coat. One side of his face was bruised. Rain streamed from his hat. Behind him waited a broad man in a coachman's cape. Mr. Bell entered and looked at the letter in Marianne's hand. "Thank God." Percival blocked the doorway. "You were ordered to stay away from Blackmere. I have received many foolish orders in the course of my profession. You are trespassing." Mr. Bell leaned upon his stick. "Your brother does not yet own this estate, and you have never owned so much as the mud on your boots." The coachman coughed into his fist. Percival's jaw tightened. Marianne held up the letter. "Did you write this?" "I did. Is there a blue ledger? There was when I last saw it. Where is it?" Mr. Bell glanced towards Percival. "Not here." Percival reached for the paper. "It concerns Blackmere." "It was addressed to me," Marianne said. "Everything concerning this family belongs to this family." "Not everything," Mr. Bell replied. "That mistake lies at the center of your scheme." Percival moved towards Marianne. The coachman stepped into the greenhouse and removed his wet gloves. He made no threat. He did not need to. Percival stopped. Mr. Bell turned to Marianne. "You must leave Blackmere tonight. My father is upstairs. Sir Edmund is in danger whether you stay or go. Your presence gives Lady Euphemia another person to control. I cannot abandon him. You cannot protect him from inside a house where your letters are burned and your movements watched." Marianne looked at the bruising along his cheek. "What happened to you?" "I came to speak with Sir Edmund. Mr. Grant met me near the east gate and claimed your father had withdrawn his instructions. I asked to hear that from Sir Edmund himself." Percival smiled. "You became aggressive. I became unconvinced." Mr. Bell continued. "Two men took my papers and left me beyond the mill road. They failed to find the notes sewn into my coat lining." The coachman inclined his head. "And they placed him in a ditch near my sister's cottage instead of the river." Mr. Bell gestured towards him. "Mr. Owen Price brought me back." Marianne faced Percival. "Where are Mr. Bell's papers? I know nothing of them." The greenhouse fell silent. Marianne saw calculation in Percival's expression. He was measuring what could still be denied. Mr. Bell drew a small envelope from his coat. "This contains a summary of your mother's trust and the names of 2 banking houses in London. Keep it only until you can place it beyond Lady Euphemia's reach." Marianne accepted it. With whom? Someone outside this family. At that moment, she had no powerful ally. She possessed only the memory of the Duke of Valencrest, noticing her estate calculations and treating her opinion as if it mattered. Mr. Bell lowered his voice. "Meet us at the East Lane in 1 hour." Marianne looked through the broken glass towards Blackmere House. A lamp burned in her father's chamber. "I will see him first, then see him once. Take nothing that cannot be hidden beneath your cloak." Percival stepped between them. "She is not leaving." Mr. Bell met his gaze. "You have no authority to stop her. My mother does. Your mother governs a household. She does not own Miss Vale's person." "Society may make little distinction," Percival said. Marianne folded Mr. Bell's letter and lowered it towards the brazier. The paper caught. Flame ran across the solicitor's writing. Names darkened. Sentences curled inward. Within moments the letter became ash. Percival stared at it. Marianne slipped the sealed summary into her sleeve. "Now there is nothing here for you to take." His expression hardened. For the first time in her life, she understood that he had never regarded her as family. She was not a sister or a burden. She was an obstacle. Mr. Bell touched her elbow. 1 hour, he and Mr. Price left through the rain. Percival remained. "You think burning a letter makes you clever?" "No." "You think Bell can save you?" "No." "Then what do you think?" Marianne met his eyes. "That you are frightened." His hand moved. For one moment, she expected a blow. Instead, he overturned the brazier. Ash scattered across the wet stones. "You will regret mistaking restraint for fear." He left. Marianne waited until his footsteps faded. Then she knelt beside the brazier. One corner of the letter had survived. 3 words remained. Names of the dead. She crushed the fragment between her fingers. When she returned to the house, dinner had begun. The dining room glowed with candles reflected in polished silver. Soup steamed in porcelain bowls. Cold salmon, glazed carrots, white bread, and a raised pie covered the table. It was not hospitality, but theatre, arranged to persuade the household that order still ruled Blackmere. Euphemia sat at one end. Arthur occupied Sir Edmund's chair at the other. He looked uncomfortable in it. Percival stood beside the sideboard with a glass of claret. No one asked why his coat was wet. Euphemia examined Marianne's cloak. "Where have you been?" "In the garden." "In this weather?" "I needed air." People who need air do not usually conceal themselves in ruined buildings. Marianne removed her gloves. "Then you know where I was." The servants became still. Mrs. Pike held a soup tureen above the table. Elsie waited near the door with her gaze lowered. Arthur looked between them. "What happened?" "Your sister met a man in the greenhouse," Euphemia said. The silence came too quickly. The accusation had been prepared before Marianne entered. Arthur rose. "What man?" "Nathaniel Bell." Relief crossed his face. Euphemia continued. "A man dismissed by your father for dishonesty." "That is false," Marianne said. Percival lifted his glass. He was found trespassing. He came to perform his duty as father's solicitor. He no longer serves in that capacity. "Who dismissed him?" "Your father." "Then produce the letter." Arthur frowned. "What letter?" "The letter of dismissal." Euphemia unfolded her napkin. "Your father gave the instruction verbally. While confused by medicine, Dr. Harcourt has warned us about your habit of interpreting grief as evidence." Marianne looked at Arthur. "Mr. Bell was attacked near the east gate." Percival laughed. "He fell into a ditch after drinking. Mr. Bell does not drink." Every servant heard the certainty in her voice. Euphemia noticed. "Why are you all standing idle?" The servants moved again. Spoons touched china. Wine entered glasses. Yet the truth had entered the room. It did not move like gossip. Gossip sought attention. Truth sought memory. "Sit down, Marianne," Euphemia said. "I am going to father. He has a nurse selected by Dr. Harcourt." Arthur struck the table lightly. "Enough." Everyone looked at him. For a heartbeat, Marianne hoped he had found courage. He looked only weary. "We will not argue before the servants." Euphemia smiled. "Quite right." Marianne remained standing. "Arthur, did father dismiss Mr. Bell?" Her brother glanced towards Percival. That movement answered her. "I was told he did." "By mother?" "Yes. Did you hear father say it?" "No." "Then you know nothing." Arthur's face flushed. "I know Blackmere cannot survive if every instruction is challenged." "This family," Marianne said, "or this arrangement." The room went silent again. Percival set down his glass. "You speak boldly for someone who depends upon our patience. I have mistaken dependence for duty long enough." Arthur looked frightened. Not of Euphemia, of Marianne becoming someone he could no longer place beneath his protection. She turned and left. Mrs. Pike waited at the foot of the staircase. "Lady Euphemia requests the household keys. My father gave them to me. Sir Edmund is no longer fit to manage domestic matters. Then Lady Euphemia may ask him to say so while I am present." Mrs. Pike followed her. "Miss Vale." Marianne stopped. The housekeeper had served Euphemia before coming to Blackmere. "How many of my letters have you burned?" Mrs. Pike's pale lips tightened. "I obey the mistress of the house. My father is alive. Her ladyship acts for his welfare." "How many?" Mrs. Pike looked towards the dining room door. Then she whispered, "Not all." Marianne stared at her. "Where are they?" "I cannot tell you. You can." Footsteps sounded behind the door. Mrs. Pike stepped away. The linen cupboard, bottom shelf, behind the lavender bags. Then she raised her voice. "Very well, miss. I shall inform her ladyship that you refused." She returned to the dining room. Marianne climbed the stairs. Her father's chamber stood at the western end of the gallery. The door was locked. Nurse Carter opened it only a few inches. "Sir Edmund is sleeping. I wish to see him." Dr. Harcourt ordered no disturbance. "I have sat beside my father every evening for 3 weeks. Not tonight." Marianne placed her foot against the door. "Let me see his face." "You are upsetting the household." Something scraped inside the room. Then came a faint blow. Marianne pushed. "Father." Silence. Then Sir Edmund's voice came from the darkness. "Marianne." Nurse Carter froze. Marianne forced the door wider. Her father sat half-raised against the pillows. One wrist hung over the edge of the bed. A leather strap lay loose beside it. Marianne stared. "What is that?" "For his safety." "His safety from whom?" Sir Edmund turned his head. His lips were pale. "Bible," he whispered. Marianne moved towards him. Nurse Carter seized her arm. "You must leave." Marianne pulled free. "Father, where is the blue book?" His gaze shifted towards the bedside table. The family Bible was gone. Who took it? "Outside," Nurse Carter said. Sir Edmund opened his hand. A small brass key fell onto the coverlet. Marianne and the nurse moved at once. Marianne reached it first. Nurse Carter caught her wrist. "Give me that." Sir Edmund made a broken sound. Marianne twisted free and backed towards the door. The nurse pulled the bell rope. A bell rang below stairs. Marianne fled. Percival appeared at the opposite end of the gallery. He had expected the signal. "Stop her." A footman emerged from the lower landing. Marianne changed direction and entered the old schoolroom. She locked the door and pushed a chair beneath the handle. Percival struck the wood. "Open this door." Dust covered the desks. A cracked globe stood near the wall. The narrow window overlooked the roof of the covered kitchen passage. There was no second exit. Marianne opened her hand. The brass key was small and old. It might fit Sir Edmund's writing desk. Percival struck the door again. She pulled a book from the shelf and hid the key behind the bindings. Then she opened the window. Cold rain entered at once. Below lay the sloping roof. "You are making matters worse," Percival called. For the first time in her life, Marianne climbed through a window. Her shoes slipped on wet slate. She gripped the stone ledge and lowered herself until her arms shook. Then she dropped. Pain ran through her ankle, but she remained upright. Above, the schoolroom door crashed open. Percival reached the window. Marianne crossed the roof, using a chimney stack for balance. The slate shone like black glass. One wrong step would send her into the yard. She reached the far parapet and climbed through a laundry window left open for steam. Elsie stood below with a basket of sheets. "Miss." "Quiet." Marianne lowered herself onto a table. "They are searching for you," Elsie whispered. "I know." Marianne took the sealed summary from her sleeve. "Hide this." The girl stepped back. "They searched our rooms today, then place it somewhere they would never touch." Elsie thought for a moment. Cook's dripping jar. Despite the danger, Marianne almost smiled. Perfect. Elsie hid the envelope beneath her apron. "What will you do?" "Find the family Bible. It is in Lady Euphemia's sitting room." "How do you know?" "I carried it there this afternoon." Marianne understood. Euphemia had removed it after hearing Sir Edmund's warning. Footsteps approached. Elsie pointed towards the linen room. Marianne slipped inside. Shelves rose around her, stacked with sheets, winter blankets, towels, and lavender bags. She crouched before the bottom shelf. Behind 3 bundles stood a narrow wooden box. Inside were 7 letters addressed to her. 2 bore Mr. Bell's hand. One came from a London banking house. Another carried the Duke of Valencrest's seal. She opened the Duke's letter first. Sir Edmund had asked him to review improvements for the Western farms. The figures appeared to be Marianne's, the Duke wrote, and he wished to hear her explanation before advising her father. There was no intimacy in the words. Yet they proved Sir Edmund had sought help beyond Blackmere. They also proved Euphemia had prevented the meeting. The banking letter referred to a delayed transfer requiring Marianne's signature, not Sir Edmund's, not Arthur's, hers. The door opened. Mrs. Pike entered and closed it quickly. "You should have gone. I tried. Mr. Bell is waiting at the East Lane. Not now. Mr. Grant sent 2 grooms there." The hired coach turned towards the village. Mrs. Pike looked at the letters. "You cannot carry those through the house. I will not leave them here." The housekeeper clasped her reddened hands. "I did not burn them all. But you burned others." "Yes." The confession came without excuse. "How many?" 11. Perhaps 12. "Why save these?" "The bank seal frightened me. Mr. Bell's name frightened me more." "And the Duke's?" Lady Euphemia read it twice. Then she said, "A woman who encouraged attention above her station, invited humiliation." Marianne folded the letters. "Did you know what they planned for me?" "Not at first." "And now?" Mrs. Pike lowered her voice. Dr. Harcourt prepared a statement. "It says you suffer from agitation, suspicion, and dangerous delusions caused by grief. Lady Euphemia means to send you to a private house after the funeral." The linen room seemed to close around Marianne. They had already prepared her ending. "My Aunt Lydia," she said. "Was it the same?" Mrs. Pike began to tremble. "I entered Lady Euphemia's service before she married Sir Edmund." "Tell me." Lady Lydia discovered accounts connected to Euphemia's first husband. Debts, payments, a forged note. She meant to show Sir Edmund. What happened? Her letters were withheld. Servants were ordered not to answer her questions. The more she protested, the more they called it proof of illness. Who declared her ill? Dr. Harcourt's father. Marianne closed her eyes. It was not one sudden cruelty, but an old method, practiced until it appeared respectable. The bell rang again. 3 sharp pulls. "They know I am missing," Marianne said. Mrs. Pike looked towards the passage. "Give me your apron and cap." "Miss?" No one notices a servant carrying linen. A faint smile touched the housekeeper's mouth. They never do. Minutes later, Marianne left the linen room beneath a servant's cap, carrying a basket of folded sheets. The servants' corridors were alive with confusion. Percival shouted near the back staircase. Nurse Carter demanded that the doors be watched. No one stopped the woman carrying linen. Marianne reached Euphemia's sitting room. Candles burned beside a rosewood escritoire. Silk curtains shut out the storm. A tray held chocolate, sugared almonds, preserved cherries, and iced cakes. The family Bible lay on the desk. Marianne opened it. The first pages carried the family's births and deaths. Sir Edmund. Lydia Vale, Marianne's mother. Marianne. Arthur. Between the page recording Lydia's death and the next leaf, a strip of blue leather showed within the binding. Marianne pressed it. A hidden compartment opened. It was empty. The blue ledger had been there. Someone had removed it. She searched the escritoire. The drawers were locked. The small brass key hidden in the schoolroom might fit them. She had left the one thing she needed at the other end of the house. Voices approached. Euphemia and Percival. Marianne closed the Bible and lifted the basket. Percival entered first. "Leave those," he said. Marianne lowered her head and walked past him. Euphemia appeared in the doorway. "Stop," Marianne halted. "What is your name?" "Mary, my lady." Euphemia lifted the top sheet. "These belong to the West Rooms." "Yes, my lady." "Then why are you here?" "Mrs. Pike instructed me." Euphemia examined the shadow beneath the cap. Percival turned from the Bible. "Mother, the compartment is open." The room went still. Euphemia looked from the Bible to the servant. Marianne dropped the basket. Sheets spilled across the carpet. She ran through the dressing chamber. Percival followed. In the gallery, she collided with Arthur. He caught her shoulders. "Marianne?" Percival emerged behind her. "Hold her." Arthur did not release her. "What has she done?" "I searched Father's Bible," Marianne said. "The ledger is gone." Arthur frowned. "What ledger?" The record of money taken from my mother's trust. Euphemia entered the gallery. There is no ledger. Father told me there was. Your father believes dead men speak through walls. The lie came too quickly. Arthur's grip loosened. Percival seized Marianne's arm. Enough. She pulled free. Ask Mother why Lydia Vale was sent away. Arthur froze. Euphemia's composure broke for one heartbeat. Who told you that name? Our aunt, Arthur said. She was ill. She discovered your first husband's accounts, Marianne said. Arthur looked at Euphemia. Is that true? Of course not. Mrs. Pike appeared at the far end of the gallery. Elsie stood beside her. For the first time, both servants faced the family without lowering their eyes. Mrs. Pike spoke. Lady Lydia was not mad. The rain against the windows sounded like thrown gravel. Euphemia turned. You forget yourself. No, my lady. I remember too much. Percival moved towards the housekeeper. Arthur stepped between them. Do not touch her. It was a small act. Late and uncertain, but his first. Mrs. Pike's voice shook. Lady Lydia wrote letters. We burned them. She kept accounts. They disappeared. Every protest was called proof of illness. This woman has been corrupted by Marianne, Euphemia said. She did not speak to me of Lady Lydia until tonight. Arthur looked at his mother. Where is the ledger? I do not know. Percival turned towards the staircase. Search Marianne's room. You already have, Marianne said. He stopped. The truth appeared in his face. The ledger had not been found. Euphemia saw it too. Where is it? I thought you had it, Percival replied. A fracture opened between them. Neither knew where the book had gone. Someone else had taken it. A door opened below. Nurse Carter's scream rose through the house. Sir Edmund! Marianne ran. She reached her father's chamber first. The bed was empty. The leather strap hung over the side. The window stood open to the rain. A broken medicine bottle and one muddy footprint lay on the carpet. Arthur entered behind her. Where is he? Nurse Carter clutched the bell rope. He was here. I left only to fetch Dr. Harcourt. The window ledge showed no blood and no torn cloth. Below lay the roof of the conservatory passage. Sir Edmund could not have crossed it alone. Someone had helped him. On the bedside table lay a folded strip of paper. Marianne opened it. The writing was weak, but unmistakably her father's. Trust Bell. Find Lydia's maid. The book is not at Blackmere. Beneath the words stood a London address. Euphemia entered and saw the paper. Her face turned white. Marianne folded it before anyone else could read. Arthur stared at the open window. Who took father? No one answered. Then carriage wheels sounded upon the drive. Marianne looked out. A closed coach passed through the gates. For one moment, the lamp illuminated the silver crest on its rear panel. It did not belong to Blackmere. It belonged to Valencrest. And Marianne did not yet know whether the Duke had rescued her father or carried away the only man who could prove the truth. By dawn, the rain had stopped. Blackmere lay beneath a colourless sky. Water shone across the lawns, and the gutters still dripped. No breakfast bell rang. No carriage left the stable yard. The servants moved quietly, as though the house itself had become a sick room. Sir Edmund had vanished from a locked chamber. Marianne stood in the old schoolroom with the small brass key in her palm. Arthur waited beside the window. He had not slept. His cravat hung loose, and weariness darkened his eyes. You believe the Duke took father, he said. I saw a Valencrest carriage leave moments after father disappeared. That is not proof. No. Mother says the crest may have been copied. Marianne closed her fingers around the key. Mother says whatever delays the truth. Arthur turned from the window. You accuse her of theft and of sending Aunt Lydia away under false pretenses. Mrs. Pike told us what happened to Lydia. You encouraged her. Do you believe Mr. Bell bruised his own face and threw himself into a ditch? Arthur looked towards the cracked globe. I do not know what I believe. That uncertainty has protected you for years. The words hurt him. Marianne saw it, but she did not withdraw them. Arthur had inherited comfort without asking who paid for it. Rooms were warmed for him. Horses were saddled. Accounts were settled. Every difficulty disappeared before reaching his door. Now the cost had a face, his sister's. Arthur lowered his voice. What was written on father's note? You saw the London address and the instruction to find Lydia's maid. Who is she? I do not know. Mother might. She will not answer me. Then, ask as master of Blackmere. His face tightened. Do not mock me. I am asking whether your authority exists anywhere beyond father's chair. The room fell silent. Arthur glanced towards the corridor. Percival searched your room again. What did he find? Nothing. The intercepted letters and Mr. Bell's sealed summary lay beneath a loose floorboard. Elsie had returned the envelope before dawn after Cook declared that no gentleman would willingly search a dripping jar. Arthur continued. Dr. Harcourt has sent for a magistrate. Why so quickly? He did not answer. Marianne understood. They would turn Sir Edmund's disappearance into evidence against her. She had forced her way into his chamber. She had fled Nurse Carter. She had crossed a roof. She had entered Euphemia's sitting room disguised as a servant. Every act was true. Only the meaning would be false. Marianne placed the key in her pocket. I need to enter father's study. Percival has the door watched. Call the footman away. Arthur stared at her. Father gave me this key. Whatever he wished me to find still matters. If I help you, Mother will know. She already knows you protected Mrs. Pike. That was different. No, it was only smaller. For a long moment, Arthur said nothing. Then he opened the door. Wait here. 10 minutes later, the footman outside the library was summoned to the stable yard by an order bearing Arthur's name. Marianne crossed the gallery alone. The library fire had gone out. Grey morning light filled the windows without warmth. Mud still marked the carpet near the study door. The household keys failed. The brass key turned at once. Marianne entered and locked the door behind her. Sir Edmund's study smelled of paper, leather, and the faint bitterness of medicine. His desk stood beneath the closed curtains. The key opened its lowest drawer. Inside lay sealing wax, account paper, a ruler, and packets of receipts. No ledger. The next drawer held letters from tenants. The last appeared empty. The room had already been searched, but not patiently. Scratches marked the hinges. A tear ran along the green leather lining of the desk. Marianne pressed the damaged leather. It shifted. Behind it lay a narrow compartment. There was no blue book. Instead, she found an unused railway ticket to London and a folded page in her father's hand. Euphemia knows Lydia lived. Marianne stopped breathing. The family Bible recorded Lydia Vale's death 12 years before, yet Sir Edmund had written that she lived. Below the line were 3 entries. Mrs. Agnes Finch, Marlow Street, Bloomsbury. The address matched the note found beside his bed. The final sentence shook across the page. The original book went with her. The ledger was not at Blackmere because Lydia's maid had taken it to London, or Lydia herself had. A floorboard creaked outside. Marianne extinguished the candle and moved behind the door. The lock turned. Percival entered with Dr. Harcourt. Neither man saw her in the shadow. The magistrate will arrive at noon, Harcourt said. Then the statement must be signed before he comes. By Arthur? Lady Euphemia's signature may be sufficient. Arthur's would strengthen it. He will hesitate. Tell him his sister endangered Sir Edmund. Percival crossed to the desk. She did not take him. That is irrelevant. It will not be irrelevant if Valencrest has him. Dr. Harcourt's face changed. You said the carriage was a coincidence. I said that because my mother was listening. The physician set down his case. If the Duke speaks with Sir Edmund while he is lucid, this becomes difficult. How lucid can he be after what you gave him? The draft clouded his judgment. It did not erase it. You assured us. I assured your mother that confusion could be documented. I promised nothing more. Percival turned. No one asked for more. No, Harcourt said. But you think the word death very loudly. The room became still. The physician removed a folded paper from his case. This is the declaration concerning Miss Vale. Agitation, delusional suspicion, unsafe conduct, a tendency to place herself and others at risk. Crossing the roof assists us, Percival said. So does entering Lady Euphemia's room disguised as a servant. Then witnesses can support it. And when the magistrate asks why she behaved so, we say grief. He may ask to speak with her privately. Percival smiled. She will not be here. Cold moved through Marianne. Harcourt lowered the document. What have you arranged? A carriage will take her to Ravenshade Lodge before noon. Without Arthur's consent? His consent is unnecessary if she is judged dangerous. She has not been judged. Then we must ensure she behaves dangerously before the magistrate. How? Tell her that her father is dead. You do not know that. She does not know otherwise. Percival folded the declaration. Grief will do the rest. Marianne felt no panic, only clarity. They expected resistance. She would give them calm. They expected accusation. She would ask questions. They expected a broken daughter. She would become a witness. For the first time in her life, silence seemed not like surrender, but a weapon she might choose. Percival and Harcourt left. Marianne waited until their footsteps faded, then returned to the schoolroom. Arthur stood beside the window. What did you find? She handed him Sir Edmund's page. He read it twice. Aunt Lydia is alive? Father believed she was, but her death is recorded in the Bible. A family record is not proof. Arthur sat at a dusty desk. Mother told me Lydia died before I was born. Mother also told you Mr. Bell had been dismissed. He pressed the page flat. Marlow Street, Bloomsbury. We must go there. The magistrate arrives at noon. Then I leave before noon. The gates are watched. Marianne glanced towards the wet roof. I have crossed enough roofs for 1 week. Despite himself, Arthur almost smiled. It vanished quickly. If we leave together, Mother will say you persuaded me. She will say that regardless. And Father, if the Duke took him, he is safer than he was here. You do not know that. No. I know Nurse Carter strapped him to a bed. I know Harcourt clouded his mind. I know Percival plans to send me away before the magistrate arrives. Arthur stared at her. How do you know? She told him what she had heard. Shame entered his face slowly. Then I will forbid it. Percival will say Mother controls the household. Harcourt will call me dangerous. The magistrate will see a frightened new master defending his unstable sister. I am not frightened. Then do not speak first. Arthur looked offended. Marianne continued. Ask for the declaration. Delay the carriage. Keep the magistrate occupied. Let them believe you remain uncertain. And you? I leave through the servants' yard. Alone? Elsie will guide me to the village. She is a child. She knows which doors are watched and which are ignored. Arthur moved towards the door, then stopped. What will you do in London? Find Agnes Finch. Find the ledger. Find Father. And if the Duke has him, then I will ask why. At 10:30, Euphemia summoned them to the morning room. She stood beside the fire in black silk. Percival waited near the windows. Dr. Harcourt sat with the declaration upon his knee. Nurse Carter stood behind him. Arthur entered last. Marianne came without haste. She wore a plain grey dress. Mr. Bell's summary was hidden in her sleeve. Sir Edmund's page rested inside her bodice. Euphemia indicated a chair. Sit down. Marianne obeyed. The events of last night have caused grave concern, Euphemia said. Have they? Your father disappeared after you, forced your way into his chamber. I entered because he called my name. Nurse Carter spoke. Sir Edmund was distressed by her presence. Was he distressed before or after you fastened a strap around his wrist? The nurse's mouth tightened. It was for his safety. Marianne looked at Dr. Harcourt. Did you order him restrained? Sir Edmund had become unpredictable. Did you order the strap? He hesitated. Euphemia interrupted. This interrogation proves our concern. No, Marianne said. It proves simple questions. Make certain people uncomfortable. Percival moved from the window. Where is your father? I do not know. You helped him escape. No. You were seen on the roof. I crossed the roof because Nurse Carter rang for men to stop me. Why would an innocent woman flee? Because innocence does not make a locked door safe. The room fell silent. Dr. Harcourt raised the paper. Miss Vale, your behavior demonstrates agitation, suspicion, and refusal to accept reasonable authority. Whose authority? Your family's. My father's. He is absent. My brother's? Every eye turned towards Arthur. He looked at Euphemia. May I see the declaration? Percival's head turned sharply. Dr. Harcourt passed it to him. Arthur read slowly. Euphemia watched him. "You need only sign beneath my name." Arthur turned the page. At last, he looked at the physician. "You describe my sister as dangerous. Her behavior supports that conclusion. To whom has she caused injury? Danger is not measured only by injury already caused. Has she threatened anyone?" Percival answered. "She threatened to burn legal correspondence." "Her own letter," Marianne said. Arthur continued. "Has she attempted to harm herself?" No one replied. "Has she attempted to harm father?" Nurse Carter lifted her chin. Her questioning distressed him. "That is not harm." Euphemia's voice sharpened. "Arthur." He placed the declaration on the table. "I will not sign before the magistrate hears Marianne." Percival stepped forward. "The carriage is prepared. Then send it away." Authority entered Arthur's voice without apology. The room became still. Euphemia looked at him as though the furniture had spoken. "You are confused." "No, mother. I have been confused." "There is a difference." Her face hardened. "You would expose this family to scandal for a woman determined to divide it." Arthur looked towards Percival. "Mr. Bell was denied entry without my knowledge. Searches were made without my order. Father was restrained. Now Marianne is to be removed before a magistrate arrives." His voice trembled once. "That is too much agreement among people who claim nothing was planned." Percival smiled faintly. "You sound like her." "Perhaps I have finally listened." The front bell rang. 3 measured strokes. The magistrate had arrived. Euphemia looked at Marianne. "You will remain here." Arthur opened the door. "Marianne will speak when called." Percival followed Euphemia into the hall. Dr. Harcourt and Nurse Carter went after them. Arthur remained for one moment. "Go now," he whispered. Marianne crossed the servants' passage while voices gathered in the drawing room. Below stairs, cook kneaded dough with unnecessary force. Mrs. Pike polished one silver spoon repeatedly. Elsie waited beside the scullery door in an oversized brown cloak. "Mr. Price has a cart near the lower meadow," Elsie said. "How did you reach him?" "His sister came for eggs." Cook gave her a basket containing a note. Cook struck the dough. "A kitchen is not a post office." No one answered. She added flour. "Messages travel strangely when gentlemen become foolish." Marianne looked at Mrs. Pike. "I will return." The housekeeper's mouth trembled. "Return with witnesses." Marianne stepped into the yard. The cold caught her at once. No carriage waited. No footman carried a case. She had one cloak, concealed letters, a solicitor's summary, and a London address. For the first time in her life, poverty frightened her less than protection offered by the wrong people. She and Elsie crossed the kitchen garden and entered the lower meadow. Mr. Price waited with a narrow farm cart. Mr. Bell sat beside him. The solicitor looked relieved. "I feared Blackmere had swallowed you." It tried. At the village inn, Mr. Bell had arranged railway tickets. Marianne showed him Sir Edmund's message. "Agnes Finch," he said. "Lydia's lady's maid. Did you know she lived?" "I knew she left Blackmere abruptly. Sir Edmund was told she had emigrated." "And Lydia?" "I prepared no papers recording her death. Lady Euphemia claimed the institution handled everything." "Which institution?" "She never named one." "Then no one saw Lydia's body?" "Not that I know." "What is the Blue Ledger?" "Sir Edmund began it after discovering irregularities in your mother's trust. It recorded money passed through estate accounts to pay debts belonging to Euphemia's first husband, Percival's father." "Yes. How much?" "More than £6,000. "And the 12,000? "What remained of the trust, with interest and the London house?" "Sir Edmund intended to place it under your control." "Why did he wait?" "Shame. Fear of scandal. Hope that he could repair the loss privately." Mr. Bell folded his notes. "Men often call delay prudence when they mean cowardice. Her father had loved her. He had also allowed guilt to become silence, not because he wished her harm, but because he believed he could correct injustice without exposing those who caused it. The result had nearly destroyed her. The train carried them towards London beneath a sky the color of iron. For the first time in her life, Marianne traveled without permission, supervision, or a destination chosen for her. She had little money. Her reputation might already be ruined. A magistrate could be hearing that she had fled because she was guilty. Yet beneath the fear lay something new. A narrow space where decisions belonged only to her. London received them after dark. Gas lamps glowed through fog. Omnibuses passed along wet streets. Wheels hissed over mud. Clerks, servants, market women, and girls carrying parcels moved in restless streams. Mr. Bell hired a cab to Bloomsbury. Marlow Street was narrow and respectable. Number 18 carried a brass plate. Mrs. Agnes Finch, dressmaker. A maid answered. "We seek Mrs. Finch concerning Lady Lydia Vale," Mr. Bell said. The maid began to close the door. Marianne stepped forward. "Please, I am Marianne Vale." The maid studied her. "You have her eyes." They were admitted. The front parlour smelled of cloth, starch, and coal smoke. Half-finished gowns hung from a rail. Spools, chalk, pins, and folded velvet covered a work table. A silver-haired woman rose beside the fire. A measuring ribbon hung around her neck. "Sir Edmund's daughter," she said. "Yes." "Where is your father?" "We do not know." Agnes closed her eyes. "Then they have begun again." Mr. Bell placed Sir Edmund's note on the table. "He told us to find you." Marianne spoke softly. "Is Lydia Vale alive?" Agnes looked at her for a long time. Then she crossed to the work table and unlocked its lowest drawer. Inside lay a blue leather ledger beneath invoices and fabric samples. Lady Lydia lived for 8 years after Blackmere declared her dead. The room went silent. Where is she now? She died 3 years ago. Did she know the truth? She preserved it. Agnes opened the book. Columns filled the pages. Dates, withdrawals, banking houses, false estate expenses. Beside several entries stood Euphemia's initials. Near the back were copies of Lydia's letters. One named Dr. Harcourt's father. Another described medicine placed in her tea. A third recorded Euphemia's threat that Marianne would also be sent away if Sir Edmund tried to restore the missing money. The words had been written 12 years earlier. Marianne's future had existed in Euphemia's plans, long before Marianne knew she was in danger. Agnes opened a pocket sewn inside the cover and removed a recent letter bearing Sir Edmund's seal. He sent this 8 days ago. Sir Edmund wrote that he intended to reveal the theft at the Winter Assembly in Valencrest House. The Duke had agreed to invite a magistrate, Mr. Bell, and several families connected to Blackmere. The assembly would take place in 6 days. "If I am prevented from attending," Sir Edmund had written, "Marianne must stand in my place. Valencrest knows enough to open the matter, but only she may decide how it ends." Mr. Bell removed his spectacles. Then the Duke was preparing a public reckoning. A knock sounded at the front door. The maid entered with a card. The Duke of Valencrest. He entered in his travelling coat, rain darkening his shoulders. Marianne searched his face. "My father? Alive." Relief struck so sharply that she gripped the chair. "Where is he?" "At Valencrest House with my physician." "Why did you take him without telling me?" The servant helping him had minutes. Percival's men were near the East Lane. Sir Edmund begged to be removed before Harcourt returned. The Duke saw the ledger. "You found it. It was never lost," Agnes said. The Duke turned back to Marianne. Sir Edmund woke briefly. "He said Percival intends to transfer money from the Western Farms tomorrow and destroy the remaining estate books." Mr. Bell rose. "Then we act tonight." "No," Marianne said. Everyone looked at her. She rested both hands on the ledger. "Percival expects panic. Euphemia expects accusation. Harcourt expects me to appear unstable." Her voice remained calm. "We will give them none of those things." "What do you propose?" the Duke asked. "We allow Percival to make the transfer." Mr. Bell frowned. "That risks the money. It also creates a new record bearing his name. And the estate books? Arthur will remove them first." "You trust him?" "Not fully, but I trust his shame. At present, it is stronger than his obedience." The Duke stepped nearer. "You intend to return to Blackmere?" "Not yet. First, Mr. Bell will teach me every entry in this ledger. Agnes will prepare a statement. Your physician will examine father before another witness." She looked directly at the Duke. "And the Winter Assembly will proceed. You understand what that means? Every person who accepted Euphemia's version of me will hear the truth. For years, Euphemia had relied upon closed doors, intercepted letters, and obedient silence. The truth would not defeat her inside another private room. It would wait beneath chandeliers, before titled guests, with documents laid where everyone could see them. Mr. Bell opened his notebook. Then we need Percival's transfer, Harcourt's declaration, the estate books, Lydia's letters, Agnes's testimony, Sir Edmund's examination, and Arthur's cooperation. 6 days, Marianne said. The Duke held her gaze. It is dangerous. Remaining powerless was dangerous. This is merely difficult. For the first time in her life, Marianne did not wait for a man to approve her decision. Outside, London rain began against the windows. Inside, Agnes opened the ledger to its first page. Mr. Bell sharpened a pencil. The Duke sent for his physician. The trap around Marianne had not vanished, but its door had changed direction. And somewhere at Blackmere, Percival was preparing to sign the very document that would close it upon him. For 6 days, Marianne lived between evidence and waiting. By morning, she sat with Mr. Bell over the blue ledger. By afternoon, she learned the paths by which money disappeared. A payment for roof repairs had cleared a gambling debt. An entry for winter grain had covered jewelry purchased in Paris. A sum recorded as drainage work had been transferred through 2 banking houses before reaching a creditor connected to Percival's father. The theft had not been one reckless act. It had been careful, patient, and respectable in appearance. Agnes Finch prepared her statement in a firm hand. She recorded Lydia's confinement, the intercepted letters, the medicine added to tea, and the false report of death. She named Dr. Harcourt's father and described the carriage that had taken Lydia away from Blackmere. The Duke of Valencrest's physician examined Sir Edmund before Mr. Bell and a second doctor from London. Sir Edmund's body was weak, but his mind cleared as the draft left him. He confirmed the ledger. He confirmed the trust. He confirmed that Euphemia knew Lydia had survived. He also confessed something Marianne had not expected. "I let fear become delay," he said from the bed at Valencrest House. "I told myself I was preserving Arthur's future. I told myself I could restore your money quietly. Every year I waited, the lie grew stronger." Marianne sat beside him. "Why did you not tell me?" "Because you still looked at me with trust." His voice broke. "I was ashamed to lose it." She did not comfort him at once. Not because she did not love him, because love had too often been used to demand silence from her. "You nearly lost more than my trust," she said. "I know." His hand rested on the coverlet between them. "I cannot ask you to forgive me." "No." The room became still. For the first time in her life, Marianne allowed a man she loved to remain inside the discomfort he had created. Then she placed her hand over his. "You may earn what remains." Sir Edmund closed his eyes. It was not forgiveness. It was a door left unlocked. At Blackmere, Arthur did what Marianne had asked. He delayed Percival without revealing that he had chosen a side. He allowed the transfer document to be prepared. He watched Percival sign his own name. Then, before dawn, Arthur removed the estate books from the locked office and sent them to Mr. Bell through Owen Price. He also preserved Dr. Harcourt's declaration. Beside Euphemia's signature stood a blank line where Arthur's name should have been. That blank space became evidence of its own. Percival noticed the missing books 2 days later. His anger reached London through a message from Elsie. "Mr. Grant has dismissed 2 servants, threatened the steward, and searched the coal cellar. Lady Euphemia has told visitors that Miss Vale fled after harming Sir Edmund. Invitations continue to arrive for the Valencrest Assembly." Marianne read the note twice. They still intended to attend. The Duke stood near the library fire. "They believe absence would look like fear." "They are correct," Marianne said. "And attendance will look like confidence." The Duke studied her. "You have changed." "No." She folded Elsie's note. "I have stopped asking frightened people to describe me." On the evening of the assembly, Valencrest House blazed with light. Carriages filled the Crescent Drive. Footmen moved beneath lamps. Music drifted from the ballroom where chandeliers burned above polished floors and mirrors multiplied every flame. The same families who had watched Marianne stand in the rain arrived in silk, velvet, pearls, gloves, and black evening coats. Lady Corisande Bell came wearing amethysts. The two officers who had laughed beneath the church porch stood near the musicians. The rector arrived with his wife. The magistrate who had visited Blackmere entered beside Mr. Bell. No one knew why he had been invited. Rumour had already prepared the room. Miss Marianne Vale had fled. Sir Edmund had disappeared. The Duke of Valencrest had involved himself in a private scandal. Lady Euphemia arrived shortly before 9. She wore dark green silk with jet beading. Percival walked at her right. Arthur followed them alone. The room noticed that Arthur did not offer his mother his arm. Euphemia noticed too. She smiled as though nothing had changed. "Where is Marianne?" Percival asked him quietly. Arthur took a glass of water from a tray. "You told everyone she was dangerous. Surely you do not expect her at a crowded assembly." Percival's eyes narrowed. "Do not play clever games. I am not clever enough for your games." Arthur looked towards the ballroom doors. "That has been the trouble." The musicians began a waltz. Guests moved across the floor in measured circles. Fans opened. Jewels flashed. Servants passed silver trays carrying champagne, small pastries, preserved fruit, sugared nuts, and slices of iced cake. Lady Euphemia accepted greetings with perfect calm. She spoke of grief. She spoke of family strain. She spoke of Marianne's fragile nature, with sorrow so polished that several women touched her hand. Not once did she appear afraid. Then the ballroom doors opened. The Duke of Valencrest entered. Marianne walked beside him. The music did not stop immediately. One violin continued for 3 uncertain notes before silence reached the musicians. The whole room turned. Marianne wore no jewels except her mother's small pearl pin. Her gown was grey silk, plain in cut, severe in line. She did not resemble a discarded daughter returning to plead. She resembled a woman who had come to keep an appointment. The Duke offered her his arm until they reached the centre of the room. Then he stepped aside. The choice mattered. He had brought her in. He would not speak for her. Lady Euphemia's fan stopped moving. Percival stared at Marianne as though she had risen from the grave. Arthur lowered his head once. Not in shame, in recognition. Lady Corisande whispered to the woman beside her. "So she is not confined after all." Marianne heard. She also heard the same thin laughter that had followed her through the churchyard. It lasted only a moment. The Duke raised one hand. "My friends, before the dancing continues, a matter must be addressed." Percival stepped forward. "Your Grace, if this concerns Miss Vale's illness, I must object. Her family has taken every reasonable measure." "No," said a voice from the doorway. Everyone turned. Mrs. Pike stood beneath the ballroom arch. She wore her plain black servant's dress. Elsie stood beside her. Behind them waited Agnes Finch. A servant had spoken before dukes, magistrates, officers, and titled women. The room became so quiet that no one seemed to breathe. Mrs. Pike's hands trembled. Her voice did not. "Miss Vale is not ill." Euphemia's face hardened. "You have no place here. I had a place whenever you required letters burned." A movement passed through the guests. Percival approached her. "Leave this room." The magistrate stepped between them. "The witness will remain." That single word changed everything. Witness, not servant, not gossip. Witness. Mrs. Pike looked at Marianne. "I'm ready." Marianne nodded. Mr. Bell entered, carrying a leather case. He placed it on a long table beneath the chandeliers. The Duke spoke. This assembly was arranged at Sir Edmund Vale's request. He intended to address the management of Blackmere, the trust belonging to his daughter, and the treatment of his sister Lydia. Euphemia lifted her chin. "Sir Edmund is not here." A door opened at the far end of the ballroom. Sir Edmund entered in a wheeled chair. The Duke's physician walked beside him. A shock moved through the room. Arthur stepped forward before remembering himself. "Father." Sir Edmund looked at him, then at Marianne, then at Euphemia. "I am here," he said. His voice was weak. The silence carried it. Percival recovered first. "Sir Edmund has been ill. Any statement made in his condition must be treated with caution." The London physician entered behind the chair. "I have examined Sir Edmund Vale on 3 occasions. His body remains weak. His mind is presently clear." Dr. Harcourt stood near a pillar. Colour left his face. The magistrate turned towards him. "You will have an opportunity to answer questions." Dr. Harcourt did not move. Mr. Bell opened the leather case. First, he removed the intercepted letters, then the banking correspondence requiring Marianne's signature, then Dr. Harcourt's unsigned declaration, then the estate books Arthur had sent from Blackmere. Finally, Agnes placed the blue ledger upon the table. Lady Euphemia stared at it. For the first time that evening, her composure failed completely. Percival saw it. "Mother." She did not answer him. Mr. Bell opened the ledger. He explained the trust established through Marianne's mother. He traced the withdrawals. He matched each false estate expense to the surviving banking records. The room listened. No one laughed. £6,000 had been removed over several years to satisfy debts connected to Euphemia's first husband. Later entries attempted to reach the remaining funds. The newest document carried Percival Grant's signature. Mr. Bell held it up. "This transfer was made 2 days ago." Percival's expression sharpened. "Arthur authorized it." Arthur stepped from the crowd. "No." Percival turned towards him. "You knew. I knew you intended to sign it. You allowed me." "Yes." A murmur moved through the ballroom. Percival stared at his younger brother. "That is entrapment." "No," Mr. Bell said. "It is your signature upon an instruction you prepared." The magistrate examined the paper. "Did you believe you had authority over these funds?" Percival's answer came too slowly. "I acted for the preservation of Blackmere. The funds did not belong to Blackmere. Everything in a family serves the family." Marianne looked at him. "Only when the powerless person is called the family's property." Percival faced her. "You understand nothing of estates." Mr. Bell opened one of the estate books. These corrected figures were copied by Miss Vale over 7 years. Sir Edmund relied upon them. The Western farms remained profitable because she identified false charges that others overlooked. The Duke of Valencrest added calmly, "I reviewed those figures myself." Percival looked around the room. The support he expected was no longer there. Marianne moved to the table. She did not raise her voice. "This entry claims 3 cottages received new roofs." She pointed to the ledger. They did not. The money paid a creditor in London. This entry records drainage on the eastern fields. No drainage was performed. The payment purchased jewels. This entry claims grain was bought during winter shortage. The grain never arrived. The sum covered a gambling account connected to Mr. Grant. One by one she read the figures. Not quickly. Not emotionally. She gave each theft the calm dignity of a fact that no longer required permission to exist. Percival interrupted. "Figures can be altered." Agnes opened the back of the ledger. "Then perhaps letters can speak." She read Lydia's account of medicine in her tea. She read Lydia's fear that her correspondence had been intercepted. She read Euphemia's threat concerning Marianne. Lady Corisande lowered her fan. The rector's wife moved away from Euphemia. The same crowd that had laughed in the churchyard now created distance by inches. Euphemia saw it happen. She spoke at last. Lydia was unstable. Agnes looked at her. "Lady Lydia kept accounts for 8 years after you declared her dead. She supported herself by sewing. She taught 3 girls to read. She wrote to Sir Edmund every month until illness took her." "You hid her letters," Sir Edmund said. His voice shook with more than weakness. "You told me she was dead." "You wanted to believe it," Euphemia replied. The answer struck harder because it held truth. Sir Edmund lowered his head. "Yes." The room went silent again. He looked at Marianne. "I wanted quiet more than justice. That was my failure. It was not the apology of a man seeking rescue. It was a confession." Marianne allowed it to remain in public. Euphemia turned towards the guests. "You all know what families require. Secrets are contained. Estates are preserved. Difficult women are managed before they destroy every name connected to them." Several women looked away, not because they disagreed entirely, because they recognized the world she described. Marianne stepped closer. "That is why this happened for so long." Euphemia faced her. "You would not have survived without Blackmere. I survived despite what Blackmere demanded of me. You had food, education, servants, and no legal control over money left by my mother. No access to my own correspondence. No right to question a physician paid to discredit me. Gratitude does not turn captivity into kindness. The ballroom remained still. For the first time in Marianne's life, her voice did not have to be loud to carry. Dr. Harcourt moved towards a side door. The magistrate noticed. "Doctor," Harcourt stopped. "Did you prepare this declaration?" The physician looked at the paper. "Yes." "Did you examine Miss Vale privately?" "No." "Did she threaten herself or another person?" "Not directly." "Did you write that she was dangerous?" At Lady Euphemia's request, a gasp moved through the room. Euphemia turned on him. "Coward." Harcourt looked at her with exhausted bitterness. "You required a coward." Percival stepped backwards. The door behind him opened. Owen Price stood there with 2 constables. The magistrate spoke. "Mr. Grant, you will remain until the banking documents and the assault upon Mr. Bell are examined." Percival's confidence broke. He looked towards Euphemia. Mother. She did not reach for him. He had been useful while he appeared powerful. Now he was merely evidence. The constables escorted him from the ballroom. No one spoke as he passed. Dr. Harcourt followed under the magistrate's direction. Nurse Carter had not attended the assembly. By morning she would be questioned. Lady Euphemia remained beside the table. The crowd had withdrawn around her. Not dramatically. No one denounced her. No one needed to. The women who once sought her invitations no longer met her eyes. The officers near the musicians moved aside. Lady Corisande crossed the room to stand beside Marianne. The motion was calculated. Social judgment had begun. Euphemia looked at Arthur. "You will take me home." Arthur's face was pale. "Blackmere is not yours to command tonight. I am your mother." "Yes." His voice almost failed. "But that cannot mean you are always right." Euphemia turned towards Sir Edmund. "After everything I preserved for you, you preserved my cowardice," he said. "It served you well." At last, she looked at Marianne. The ballroom waited. Her apology came not softly, but with anger pressed beneath every word. "I may have acted too harshly." Marianne said nothing. Euphemia's mouth tightened. "I believed the estate required protection." Still Marianne remained silent. The whole room understood that this was not remorse, it was negotiation. Euphemia forced herself to continue. "I regret that you were made to suffer." "Made by whom?" Marianne asked. Euphemia looked at her. The question left no place to hide. "By me," she said. Marianne felt no triumph. Only the exhaustion of hearing a truth arrive years too late. "I believe you regret being exposed." Euphemia's face stiffened. "Will you forgive me?" The crowd leaned into the silence. Marianne thought of Lydia writing unanswered letters. She thought of Mrs. Pike burning them. She thought of her father waiting because shame seemed easier than confession. She thought of Arthur lowering his gaze in the churchyard. She thought of the rain beneath her collar and the empty places inside the carriage. "No," she said. "Not tonight. Perhaps not ever." Euphemia flinched. Marianne continued. "Forgiveness is not another possession you may demand from me because refusal makes you uncomfortable." She stepped aside. The path to the ballroom doors opened. Euphemia walked through it alone. No one followed. Within a month, the financial claims were formally examined. Percival was required to return what could be recovered. The assault on Mr. Bell and the false transfer brought legal consequences beyond the private wishes of the family. Dr. Harcourt lost the confidence of patients who had once welcomed him into their homes. His name disappeared from invitations. Euphemia withdrew to a small house on the coast, with a restricted income arranged by Sir Edmund. The doors that once opened before her began to close. No violence touched her. No mob pursued her. She simply entered rooms and discovered that society had learned to remember. Arthur remained at Blackmere. He returned the Western farms to the settlement intended for Marianne. He dismissed those who had assisted Percival and asked Mrs. Pike to stay. She agreed on one condition. No letter addressed to a servant or family member would ever again be opened by another hand. Arthur accepted. He did not become brave in one night, but he began to practice. Sir Edmund recovered enough to walk in the garden with a cane. Marianne visited him there because the garden was the only place where neither of them could hide behind papers, titles, or locked doors. One winter afternoon, he stopped beside a bare rose arch. "I thought love meant protecting you from scandal," he said. You protected the scandal from me. Yes. He looked across the frozen lawn. I am sorry. This time, Marianne believed him, not because the words were better, because his life had begun to agree with them. She did not restore the old trust at once. She allowed a new one to form slowly. The London house became hers. She moved there in spring. With Agnes Finch, she opened an office that kept accounts for women managing shops, dressmaking rooms, boarding houses, and small inheritances. Mr. Bell helped establish the work properly. Marianne earned her own fees. The first sovereign she received for her labor felt heavier than the entire trust. Not because it was more valuable, because no one had given it as permission. The Duke of Valencrest visited the office several months later. He did not arrive with flowers. He brought a stack of Western Farm accounts and asked whether she would review them. Marianne looked at him across the desk. Your steward will object. He already has. And you came anyway? I prefer correct figures to comfortable men. She smiled. It was the first easy smile he had seen from her. Their affection did not begin in rescue. It began in work, conversation, and the rare pleasure of being taken seriously. Years later, guests would still tell the story of the Duke opening his own carriage door in the rain. They remembered the gesture because it was visible. Marianne remembered something else. He had stepped aside in the ballroom and allowed her to speak. On the first cold evening of the following winter, she returned to Blackmere, not as a dependent daughter, not as a woman awaiting permission. She came to review the tenant accounts with Arthur and to dine with her father. Snow gathered along the drive. Lamps glowed in the windows. Inside the kitchen, Elsie had been promoted and was loudly correcting a footman twice her age. Mrs. Pike carried a bundle of letters into the hall. She handed them directly to Marianne. Every seal remained unbroken. At dinner, Arthur left Sir Edmund's old chair empty and sat beside his sister instead. Afterward, Marianne walked into the garden. The Duke waited beneath the rose arch. He offered her his hand. She took it because she chose to. Behind them, Blackmere's windows shone warm against the winter dark. A house could keep a name, Marianne had learned, yet lose the right to define the people within it. Dignity begins where fear no longer speaks for us. If Marianne's courage moved you, please like this story, subscribe to the channel, and support us so more stories of justice, dignity, and hope can be told.